Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ricky V, and you're listening to episode 491 of the Evolutionary Radio podcast. And in this one, I'm bringing back two great episodes that me and Steve did a little while ago, and they're still very, very relevant today. I think you guys should listen to them. And without further ado, check them out.
What's up, guys? Evolutionary.org podcast coming your way. This is Steve Smee, and I'm with Rick.
Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, Steve?
And we have a caller who is on the line. And we have Seth on the line. Seth, how you doing, buddy? He's calling in. He's a longtime listener of the show, a big fan. And he's calling us from Boston.
Big fan, guys.
Yep. You got the
big
Boston
fan, guys.
accent?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right, brother. East Coast in the building.
Yeah. We got a New Yorker and a Boston guy on the line. I'm from the South.
There we go.
We got a couple of Yankees here.
We got the East Coast cover from north to south, huh?
Exactly.
There we go. Cool, man.
So Seth,
Perfect.
He's a very inspiring story. We talked to him pre-show. So Seth, first tell us, we're going to talk about his steroid cycle a little bit later, but first we're going to talk about he was in a car accident. So Seth, how long ago were you in a car accident? Can you describe what happened? Did you get hit, like T-boned or something? You had a very serious injury. Tell us a little bit about that.
Basically, it was one of those cases where just a mix of stupidity and bad luck, because I was literally about a quarter mile from my house, driving when I shouldn't have been, going to see a young lady, and it was really late, and I must have, I don't know if I fell asleep or whatever, but anyway, I hit a parked vehicle, thank God, no one was hurt but myself, but it ended up being a blessing in the end, other than the fact I broke my C7 vertebrae in 3 places, and I was in a neck brace and immobile basically for 8 weeks, and completely unable to do anything physical, couldn't work, couldn't drive, obviously. But it's also inspiring the fact I stopped doing any drinking or anything like that as well. But I had done like one of my first or second cycles the year before and lost every ounce of muscle I had, which is, you guys know what it's like. I heard on the podcast a couple of weeks ago someone say the longest they'd went without working out. Was it you, Steve, that said 2 weeks was the longest you'd went without working out?
Yeah. I said I'd go crazy if I went without working out.
Dude, 8 to 10 weeks of no exercise whatsoever. It was absolute torture. It was just awful. I probably weighed 165 pounds towards the end, just scrawny, like miserable, but slowly got back into it as soon as the doctor said I was able to. Started training, and it really wasn't too long until I was able to do the real compounds like deadlifts and, squats and everything. Got back into it, and since I've been lifting since I was 15, I'm 34. I didn't wait too long to start a little bit of testosterone, a little bit of DECA, and I did a short cycle, put on like some nice size right away, did a little PCT, held on to it for a while, kept it getting some steady gains, and for a while now I've been doing another cycle, and at the last time I weighed myself, I was 210, and probably more lean than I've been since I was probably 18 at 34. I just basically, after my accident, had the near-death experience and everything with a broken neck, could have been paralyzed. God knows what could have happened. I could be in jail for doing something horrible. Stopped drinking.
So did you lose consciousness? Did you lose consciousness when you had the accident? You ended up in the hospital? Honestly, the worst part, even worse than the broken neck, the concussion, I've never had one, was so bad. I barely remember the first month. Like, I was slurring my words. Like, I had such a bad traumatic brain injury that, like, I don't remember a whole lot of it. Like, it was really serious. Yeah. I just ask one thing. I just got to ask this one thing. Did the doctor say that you were supposed to die in that accident, or did he say you were supposed to get paralyzed or anything like that? Did he say you were very lucky?
He said I was about a half an inch from severing my spinal cord, to be perfectly honest. So wow. I think that means death. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it's kind of hard not to take that as a sign to change your life and, get your shit together and get healthy and, see what your body's capable of. That's why I've been pushing myself so hard this past, since October, and really seeing what my body's capable of. And I got married recently. I've been, ended up being a blessing in disguise, despite all the nightmare that comes along with getting like an OUI and a, broken neck. But other than that, I mean, it's turned out to be a blessing.
Yeah, you could turn any event into something good, no matter how bad it seems at first.
Yeah, I mean, I could have wallowed in it and cried about it, like a lot of people do, and started doing painkillers. But I left the hospital, just took ibuprofen. I didn't start taking painkillers or anything. I just wanted
I'm sure they were willing to prescribe them
that
for your kind of injury, right? For your type of injury, they were more than willing to prescribe them, I'm sure.
Yeah, they were, but honestly, it wasn't even that bad. Like I said, the worst part was
the choice not to take them. A lot of people get hooked on them really fast. You get hooked on them with
That's the reason, dude. Yeah. My area, the heroin epidemic is just so crazy. Like I just,
Lawrence,
I have no interest in.
You guys have Lawrence up there, right? It's where most of the heroin.
Yeah. I went to UMass Lowell, so I lived right next to Lawrence.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a big epidemic there in Boston. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
You saw what was going on the street. A lot smarter, because they would have prescribed you as much as you wanted with that neck injury, and you could have kept coming back more. They would have gave you as much as you wanted.
Oh yeah, I probably could have milked this a whole bunch of scumbag ways for a long time, but it's not really my character.
Well, see, that's one of those situations where this could have ruined your life if you go on that route, but instead you went the other way, and you took something from it. You learned something from it and changed your ways for the better.
Yeah.
That's good.
And of course, there is repercussions I will be dealing with, whether it's financial or auto related. But on the other hand, a lot more good did come of it. So, I mean,
the financial stuff. Nobody was hurt, so you don't have that on your mind. And that's the financial stuff.
Dude, the craziest thing. The craziest thing is the family who owned the vehicle that I struck was trying to contact me, trying to check on me constantly. And I was so embarrassed. I never got back to them, but they would just, because they came out apparently and were talking to me, waiting for the ambulance, and just saw a huge bubble on the back of my neck because it was all spinal fluid collecting on the back of my neck. And they were like, "Oh my God, this kid's going to die on our porch." But yeah, it's crazy, man. Crazy
trouble
story.
Walking at all afterwards, or it was just the brain injury?
No, just the C7 broke 3 places, being immobilized in a neck brace for 8 weeks. Once I got that off, aside from my neck being really weak for a few weeks, like it doesn't even really hurt when it rains, to be honest. Like, it's amazing how little actual neck pain I felt from having a broken neck in 3 places.
Wow. So you did physical therapy, or what did you do to kind of come back during that 8 weeks?
My brother's a physical therapist too, and I've had no need to. He said try and stay away from obviously a bar on your neck or something like that for another 4 or 5 weeks. But so I wasn't, barbell squatting 315 right off the bat. But I mean, after a month, I mean, I was doing, bent over rows with 225 and doing squats and deadlifts and back to, doing all the core stuff.
I wonder if weight training for all those years actually helped you here. If you were just someone who never did they say anything about that?
That's a good point. No, that's a good point, though. That's a good point.
Because your bones were really super strong, and your bone were able to come back a lot quicker. That bone memory and that muscle memory
definitely would help.
Yeah, and definitely with the sauce too. That helps recovery and everything. That's a really good point. I never even thought about that.
So let's talk a little bit about the cycle you're on now, which was the original contact here. The cycle you're on now, and you had some questions you wanted us to give you some pointers on your current cycle.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know, Steve, you were a big trend guy for a while from what I've heard. I'd never done trend before. I've done like maybe 5 cycles. I waited, except for taking some D-balls in college, I waited all till I was in my 30s. And most recently, it's been like 5 to 600 milligrams test a week, 250 milligrams DECA a week. And the first half of the cycle, because I'm doing like a 6-week and then 6 weeks thing, which I don't know if, people do. It's just something I'm trying. 300 milligrams of tren acetate a week, 100 milligrams 3 days a week for 6 weeks, which has given me outstanding results. Like, I can't believe how much that tren acetate is able to change your body. It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
And I think I started with a little Anavar as well too. Just in the endurance that gave me right off the bat was just unbelievable. And so my plan because I have more DECA, I have more tests, and I have a Farmanolt 300 mix, which is like a nandrolone mix of NPP, DECA, and a couple other nandrolones. So I was gonna, once the trend's gone, jack up the nandrolone to maybe 500 milligrams DECA, 600 milligrams DECA, and I also have a bunch of boldenone cypionate, and I know that 600 milligrams is the sweet spot for that. So I was thinking the second half of the cycle, do the bold DECA test, and because I know you're not supposed to run trends much longer than 6 weeks, but I want to run, a nice 12, 13, because I'm getting phenomenal results, and I'm only halfway through. And I'm just, I don't know if that's a common thing that people do, kind of switch things up halfway through. That's why I've been doing 250 a DECA, just to keep the nandrolone in my system.
Yeah, let me jump in here and I'll let Rick chime in, because Rick's been on the forums a long time, and he's read a lot of experiences from guys. Leave me my opinion on tren. The thing is with tren, once you get to 6, 7 weeks on tren, it's great the first 4 or 5 weeks, but then when you get to the week 6, week 7, it is a phenomenal steroid for sure, and you're going to get tremendous results on it, fast results, across the board. I mean, it's going to make you a beast. But the thing is, once you get
at it like an oral.
It's just amazing how fast it works and everything. But the thing is, once you get to week 6, week 7, week 8, you just get tired of the side effects. The side effects start really beating the shit out of you, and you're like, I need to get off of this shit. So trying to saying you're going to want to run it 12, 13 weeks, it's just not realistic, and it's not healthy, because it will destroy your heart health and like no other. And it's so inflammatory in the body, because it does create a lot of PGF2A in your body, which is a very inflammatory chemical in your body. So that affects everything from top to bottom. You're going to have harder time with cardio. You're going to have a harder time breathing. You're going to have a harder time with
I did notice that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not something you want to, so maybe, pump the brakes.
The plan was to just do 6 weeks. And the reason I was doing the 250 from the DECA from the beginning was to be able to jack it up after that 6 weeks while it's still been going in my body. So it's not like I'm just starting fresh at week 6.
Do you have any more trend now, or are you done with it already?
I got about a week maybe left.
Okay. And then after that, you're out of trend, right?
Yep. Got plenty of nandrolone stuff, plenty of bold, plenty of tests.
I don't.
Yeah,
like
Rick,
trend.
I'm curious what you think, Rick, because I know you've I've heard you talk about a couple of these.
Yeah, I don't like trend anymore.
Because you used to get the pellets, right?
Yeah, I used to extract it from the pellets back in the day, early 2000s.
That's the real deal.
Yeah, it's just it's too harsh for what you're getting out of it. I guess if you're competing at any level, it can help, but just guys like us, regular guys trying to look good with our shirt off, the juice is just not worth the squeeze there. You're going to have a lot of side effects. Some can be long lasting. And
how many milligrams were you running a week, like when you were really running it?
The most I did was 150 EOD, because it was acetate. It wasn't I wasn't around.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was 150 makes EOD, and because it was extracted
like
from pellets.
450-ish.
Yeah, it would leave a big knots on your on the injection site. Which you had to rotate, because it was, you extracted from pellets. You were still going to get some stuff in there no matter what. But the fourth time that I ran it, it started to knock my hair out. I was really stressed out. I was going through a lot, and that can already knock your hair out. And then another
thing from the accident. Sorry to cut you off. The other thing from the accident, I got a huge scar on the middle of my head. So since then, I've shaved my head. So that's no longer been a worry. Thank God. Luckily, I'm pulling off the shaved head beard look.
Yeah, it's a lot of us out there like that.
Yeah, man, it's the way to go.
Yeah, I don't, so if you're out of trend, I personally wouldn't recommend you, or I don't recommend anybody use it anymore. And again, look, if you're a competitor and you have a certain date, you have to be in a certain weight or a certain look by. I get it. But just for just regular looking good, it's just not, in my opinion, it's just not worth it. Even when you're taking it, like Steve was saying, about week 4, week 5, the side effects really start to pour on, and it's just
that's exactly where I always planned to stop. I was just curious what you guys thought would be like the optimal second half as far as doses of like DECA, NPP, boldenone, cypionate, especially.
You're
like
not on You're not on TRT, right? You're going to cycle on, cycle off, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to remember with DECA, it's a long ester. We're talking 15-day half-life on that thing. So it's going to take a solid 6 weeks to be even out of your system. So if you're going to add it, if you're going to, let's say you do the DECA to week 12 and you stop the DECA, you're talking 18 weeks where you are going to be shut down. And that's going to be hard to recover.
As opposed to tests is like 2.
No, but people do that all the time. When people run DECA, they run it for 12 weeks. I mean, some people even run it like longer than that. But I'm just saying, if you're going to be cycling these harsh steroids, you have to keep in mind you're going to have to take time off to allow your HPTA to recover. Unless you're on TRT, you don't care. But if you want to keep a healthy HPTA, like I cycle on and off. What I do, I'm very conservative. I'll run 1 or 2 cycles a year. Very, very conservative.
Like fall, something like that. Fall and summer or something maybe
like that?
Well,
I'm saying if I run a 12-week cycle, I'm going to make sure I'm off for like 25 or 30 weeks so I can kind of get my HPTA back fully healthy again and functioning. So you want to keep that in mind. So don't get too greedy on the cycle.
I know.
Another thing very important with nandrolone is you need to run a DHT derivative with it, because
like
nandrolone. Yes, Proviron is perfect for it because nandrolone.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, they convert to DHN, dihydronandrolone, in the body, so that swamps your DHT. So that gives you the DECA dick. When you are on, when you come off, that's very common. So to prevent the DECA dick, one of the tricks is running a DHT derivative while you're on. And you mentioned you wanted to run Winstrol to finish your cycle. That would work as a DHT derivative. But Rick and I were
really?
Yeah, but Rick and I were talking about that pre-show, and a lot of competitors are run Winnie to kind of finish off the cycle because they want to dry out. But you're not monetizing the cycle. You're not going to get photos where you're submitting it to be a model or anything. You're not going to be competing, right? So really, there's no point.
I just want to see what I'm capable of. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So really, like to finish it off with Winstrol, which is a very, very harsh steroid, there really isn't a point to dry you out. So I would consolidate things. I talked to Rick about this pre-show. That was my opinion on your cycle. Maybe consolidate things a little bit. Maybe run a low amount of tests. If you want to run the DECA, that's fine. Run the DECA, and then you finish off the trend, and then let the test and DECA continue the rest of the cycle along with Proviron, instead of starting to add EQ and adding this and adding that and adding Winstrol.
No, I've been running the DECA since day 1 with the test, but just 250 a week, and this was my plan. I just wanted to see what you guys thought of it. Was to maybe run DECA till week 10, and just increase it a little bit after the trend, and increase the boldenone, because I've done maybe like nothing, like 100 milligrams of bold cyp twice a week just to get it in my body while I was on the trend. But I was thinking DECA till week 10, boldenone till the end, and test till week 12 or 14, and then just try and do proper PPP.
I would stick with the DECA and then just swap in Proviron instead of worrying about the EQ. Save the EQ for next cycle, because DECA and EQ are both mild compounds. They there's no yin and yang there. So you're running the test, which is your androgen. You're running the DECA, which is your mild compound, the slow builder, and then you're running the Proviron, which is your DHT derivative. So it's kind of a yin and yang when you do that. And
really?
I wouldn't even worry about the EQ because there's really there's no point. Save the EQ for next cycle, you know what I'm saying? That's how I would do it. What do you think?
I got a different idea.
What do you think's more? What do you think's more effective? Because I know EQ is supposed to be more, safe as far as sides. Would you?
Let me ask you a question, buddy. Just you said you have now on. You got the test, you got the EQ, and you got DECA, right? Anything else you'd have to go get because you're out of trend. You don't have the Winstrol, you don't have the Proviron, correct?
I don't have the Winstrol yet. The Proviron should be here this week. I have everything else: the NPP, DECA Mix, DECA.
With what you have. The way I would run what you have right now is this: I try to stay under a gram a week, under 1,000 mgs a week. I would run the Test D at around 500 to 600, and then I would run each the DECA and the EQ at between 250 to 300 a piece. So you get a total of about 1,000 mgs, and just run those three. I like that combination quite a lot. It's my favorite combination. Has been EQ, DECA, and testosterone.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
That sounds very practical.
The number one most popular cycle has always been Dianabol, DECA, testosterone. It's been the number one cycle.
Yeah.
And the EQ is basically the same Dianabol hormone. The difference is that it has an ester chain instead of being 17 alkaline. So basically it's same kind of hormone, just a different, I guess you could call it a different delivery. So I like that cycle quite a bit.
Yeah, that sounds great. But when you say Winstrol's harsh though, because it would be orals with my supplier. He does do 25 milligram caps, as opposed to I'm not doing, injectable Winstrol. I've just heard nothing but bad shit about it, and I don't want to do it every day. But
it's the same thing. The oral injectable is the same thing at the end of the day. The thing about Winstrol is that if you look at the literature in the past, they rated it as low side effect because they went off of how much does this aromatize. And yes, Winstrol does not aromatize. So you're not going to get the estrogen side effects. That's what guys based on back in the 80s and 90s.
That's all they looked at?
That's not all they looked at, but that's one of the main, because they didn't have AIs at the time. So nobody back then wanted to get bitch tits. That was if you got bitch tits, everyone would make fun of you in the gym, whatever.
Yeah,
but now we have AI. So the thing with Winstrol, it strains the shit out of your cholesterol. We know that. I mean, you can run it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, go take your cholesterol, and you'll see that. It strains your heart. It strains the shit out of your liver very harshly, and it burns the shit out of your head hair, which for you is not an issue, but for people like me who have head hair, it is. And then maybe the worst part of it, too, is what it does to your joints and what it does to your prostate.
I heard that.
It will enlarge
my supplier actually said – my supplier said the same thing. He said he can't stand the way Winstrol makes him feel, and he much prefers Anavar.
I got headaches on Winstrol too, and I never get headaches. So that tells you how much shit stresses your body. I'm personally not a fan of Winstrol, but you may like it. I don't know. You may
Are you an Anavar fan?
I am a fan of Anavar and T-Bol. Those are my two favorite orals. T-Bol especially.
Oh, T-Bol.
I'm a fuck.
T-Bol's nice. Yeah, T-Bol's nice.
I love T-Bol. Yeah.
T-Bol's good for cutting like that too.
Yes, it is. T-Bol has very low side effects. Yeah, and it doesn't aromatize, so it's really good. It's really good for that. You don't want to.
What kind of doses do you run for something like that usually?
Well, for T-Bol, 30, 40 milligrams a day is an excellent dose.
That's not bad.
I'm conservative when it comes to steroids. Some guys will run 50, 60 milligrams. I like to run 30, 40, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic oral. And it's got low side effects. It is liver toxic though, so you want to make sure that you run your N2 guard when you're using anything liver toxic.
True. Okay. Great. Yeah, that's good to know. I forgot about T-Bol.
Yeah, when I saw what you sent us in an email, you were proposing taking something like a 600 mgs of combined DECA, and I would advise against it, especially taking the same amount of DECA and test 1-to-1. You could go about avoiding DECA two ways. One, I like to run testosterone at twice the amount of the DECA with an androlone, and that'll usually do the trick. That's been pretty classic. Steve also suggests use a Proviron, but then you get into deeper water. Now you have to watch your liver, and you're adding another steroid on there. I think with 3 steroids, you got plenty. 3 steroids, keep them under a gram. You're not competing. You're trying to just look good and make good progress. That should be plenty. if you're having trouble getting to where you want to go with your physique at a gram of steroids a week, 3 different ones, you need to look at your training and your diet and all these other things first then, because a gram is plenty for anybody to make some great progress on. So I would.
What did you say for doses of EQ and DECA?
I would do EQ and DECA. I would run it at 250 to 300 a piece. 250 to 300 a piece. You got a little 50 make wiggle room there. With the testosterone E, you want to run it 500 to 600 a piece. So
I've been doing like 625, something like that.
Let's say you do 500 test or 600 test, and then just run the DECA at 200, and then EQ at 300, and that's plenty, dude. That's a gram combined. You're going to grow in that. You have to grow in it, otherwise there's some other issues. I mean, a gram is plenty for anybody, especially a guy who you're not competing, buddy. This is not. You don't have a certain date to be a certain way by. You could take your sweet ass time with it. And look, you look good now. Looking at your stats, you got to be lean. So take your sweet ass time with it. Just take your time. Make it a marathon.
Would you guys basically advise against ending it with the oral altogether? Basically,
I would. You know what? Look, my opinion on it is this, buddy. I would take a little bit of time off. I would cut it a little bit short, take some time off, and save some of that oral for later. I think you get to a certain point where you just start to waste money because you're right. You can only make so much progress in a certain amount of time. I like to just squeeze as much as I can out of the smallest doses you can. That's the way you should play.
You're right. I think I needed to hear that too. You're right.
And you're using an
waste of money at time. Yeah.
You're using an AI on this cycle, correct?
Oh yeah, I'm doing a 0.5 milligram of Arimidex every day. I don't know if that's much, but that's what I've been doing every other day.
Yeah, you said half a day? A day?
I've been doing half a day. It's half every other day better.
Okay. Well, I mean, it just depends. Everyone's different. It just depends on how much tests you're running, how much DECA you're running. DECA doesn't aromatize as much as tests. So if you're running a high dosage of tests, then you want to basically, make sure that's balanced. But blood work is going to be the key. You want to make sure you get blood work. You don't want your estrogen levels too low, and you don't want it too high. You want it balanced. So don't drop it too low. Don't overdose the AI too much.
Because the thing I see most commonly is a 0.5 ml every other day, and that's just what I see the most. I don't know if you guys personally, stick to something like that, or if you do a half a day. I don't know
some of it. You got to play it a little bit by how you feel and how you look, and if you can get tests done every so often. But there's been times when you have to do a little bit more just because you're retaining water, and you can tell estrogen is getting high. You might have a little bit of sensitivity around your nipples, and you could tell. And there are times when you're going to feel brittle. You're going to start flushing water. You're going to feel your joints hurt you, and estrogen's kind of low. And again, you can always follow it up with a blood test, but you have to kind of play it by ear. Now, from what you're describing, 0.5 mg ED EOD, you could you really have to kind of go on what you feel on that one.
Maybe I'll try that for a week or so and see how it feels.
Yeah,
they don't have an endless supply of the tabs either.
Everybody's different, so it'd be hard to tell you straight up if you need.
Yeah, of course.
Every day or every other day, you really have to go by feeling and how you look and how everything's working.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
no, that's great advice, Joe. I'm glad I called, because I mean, especially since the trend's about to run out. I mean, hearing that it's best to, especially because I got that weird Farminal 300 NPP DECA mix, like with putting that in together with regular DECA. I mean, I don't want to DECA and all that other stuff has been a big fear, so I don't want to I don't want to go crazy with that shit. Yeah, I know EQ is a lot safer.
Rick and I have differing opinions. We gave you some differing opinions.
I know.
We both agree. You need to consolidate the cycles. No matter what, we both agree you need to consolidate things instead of just adding stuff, throwing stuff in just for the hell of it, and switching stuff up and stuff. Just try to treat this as a long-term marathon, because a lot of guys want to build Rome in one cycle, and it's just I know, you're right. And then the next time, you learned from your last one. Exactly.
Like I said, it's only my fourth. I mean, I'm going to do a couple more at least. and I'm going to learn for each time. I mean, every compound is new to me, so, you know.
And I would suggest not running tren over and over and over again, because it speeds your body down so much that you will basically end up injured because you're so fucking strong on tren.
I know. Your body can't keep up with it. I know.
Exactly. You'll start
and aggressive too in the gym. Yeah.
And you'll be cheating on your fiance. You'll be cheating on your wife, fiance. This shit makes you,
honestly,
go crazy.
To be perfectly honest, I just wanted to try it once, and it's not something I'm dying to do again, even though the results are fantastic. The aggression is a little much, and I haven't had horrible sides at 300 a week, but it's not something I'm planning to do again anytime soon. I loved what I got from it, and it's no doubt, a great thing that's extremely powerful, but not something I'm in a rush to do again, if I even do it again.
I'm very active. I love to do a lot of outdoor stuff, and right now I stay away from it. But back in the day when I was just in the gym, a gym rat, just lifting every day like a gorilla, I loved it. So it just depends on your lifestyle and stuff. But I love doing stuff, especially now in the summer. Love going to the beach and swimming and kayaking and all that stuff. So it's I like to do cardio, so it doesn't fit my lifestyle now. So
yeah,
it just
depends on cardio.
It depends on your goals.
Yeah, I think, nowadays, I think after so many years in this, I think there are no really specific cutting or bulking agents. I think you can cut up pretty good on DECA and testosterone, if that's what your diet and your training reflects. And you can bulk and gain mass on Anavar and Primobolan if you're eating that way and you're training that way. So
you're right.
Just having those hormones in your system that are well beyond what your natural body can produce, you're already at an advantage. And then it's just your diet and your training which brings it in. Now, I'm talking about guys like us, guys who are going to stay in between 8, 9 to 12% body fat. When you're getting to competitions and you're trying to get to 5%, 4%, then you definitely would want to have a Winstrol or a Trenbolone instead of a DECA, instead of a testosterone.
That's a different ballpark,
get down that way. Yeah. But if we're talking about 9, 10, 11% body fat, you can just get there and look shredded and look hard on DECA and
that's
testosterone.
A lot more than the average guy. You're right.
Absolutely.
You're totally right.
So I just my opinion for us now is just focus on that first, and that's why I asked, what do you have? I'm not gonna tell you go and buy this, go and buy that. Now, what do you have? You got test, you got DECA, you got EQ. Boom. Two parts test, 1 part DECA, 1 part EQ. You're good to go. Full 1 gram. You're gonna grow like a weed on that.
Yeah, I think I'm convinced that I think the Winstrol can wait till next time. But I'm glad I asked.
I'm gonna send you some N2Guard and some AC Generator as a gift for your cycle, and I'll send you some instructions on how to incorporate it. Yeah, absolutely.
I've been dying to try that shit, man. I've been dying to try that stuff.
Oh, you're gonna love it.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'll make sure to get that to you, and I'll tell you how to best use it for your cycle. I'll get you a bottle of each, and you can hold that and use it right at the end for PCT.
Awesome, man. And do you use HCG? Like, what do you think would be the best PCT for this type of cycle? That's my last question.
Have you done? And you've cycled before. What did your other PCTs look like before, and what results do you have?
Clomid, Teremethine the last couple times, and I think I used Proviron last time, just as a little bit the first couple weeks, just because some juice head in the gym said it was good to hang on to gains. I used that for like 2 weeks, just like 25 mg a day, and I got pretty good results from that. But I don't know. I never did HCG, and it's just people have been telling me about it, but I was thinking I was going to stick to Clomid if I can get the DECA out of my system, because I know you're not supposed to do Novadex necessarily with Tren or Nandrolone. If I can, I was going to do Nova and Clomid, and I don't know.
What I recommend,
unless you guys are.
What I recommend,
I don't know.
For a base of a PCT is your SERM, Okay, run your SERM. You can run Clomid, you can run Nolvadex, you run Turinabol, but run your SERM low dose. I see these on the internet, people telling people to run 200-300 milligrams a day of Clomid or 50-60
me
milligrams
too. It's so confusing.
No,
it's
don't listen.
They're like day one, take 300. I'm like, what?
No, don't. You're gonna feel like shit on it. Run a low dose. No
like
more than 25
a day or so.
No more than 25 milligrams a day of Clomid, and no more than 10 or 20 milligrams a day of Nolvadex. That's plenty because they won't have it. And then run a strong testosterone booster like N2 Generate, which we're gonna send you. AC Generate, N2 Generate. We're gonna send that to you. Run that with it because that's gonna offset the side effects that you'll get from those SERMs. That's a base of a PCT. Do not run HCG and PCT because HCG is gonna suppress.
I didn't want to either.
It's gonna suppress your pituitary glands. And then the Proviron, some guys, Rick and I were talking about this pre-show. I've seen blood work from guys who've run Proviron at a very low dose that did not get suppressed on it. But I've also seen guys run it and get suppressed. So that's up in the air. I don't know. I don't know.
If they got to come in, I'd rather use it at the end of the cycle anyway. If you guys are generous enough to send me the stuff to take with the SERMs,
but
I'd much rather do that anyway.
Some guys run the Cardarine, some guys run the Osterine, but the base of a good PCT is your SERM and your natural test booster, and that will work perfectly for you. So run the N2 Guard on cycle, and then run that AC Generate, N2 Generate, what we're sending you for PCT, along with your SERM. That's a good base, and then your body will recover, assuming you didn't go into cycle with a bad HPTA. Because, did you run blood work before your cycle?
I did not, no.
Yeah, so we don't know. Your HPTA could have been shit before you started your cycle.
I know.
So that's, you've been using steroids for, 4 or 5 cycles already, your HPTA. Go ahead, Rick.
And at this point, you got to wait until after PCT is done to get the blood work because whatever blood work you get done now, it's going to look crazy. It's going to be
garbage.
Yeah, it's going to look crazy. So
it's going to be all over the place.
You want to wait until PCT is done with. And look, Clomid and N2 Generate, AC Generate, as we used to call it, it's a great stack. It's great for testosterone production, and you're going to feel great on it.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, but one more time. Well, I'm talking day one, you said 25 of Clomid, not even 50, because everything on the internet I'm reading is fucking way off. If that's accurate,
I've done as much as 100 mgs of Clomid, never going over that. I'm fine with just 25 to 50 mgs of Clomid a day. I'd never need it much more than that, especially with AC Generate. Don't need any more than that.
Same thing for 4 weeks, or you lower it, or you taper, or
I do 6 weeks on
okay.
That. Yeah, 6 weeks, 2 weeks after your last injection, go 6 weeks. Yep. That's going to prevent you from crashing. PCTs to prevent a crash. Then your body will recover from there. And you can take you can take the N2 Generate, AC Generate after that, get another bottle and run it continuously to kind of make you feel better. It's not going to interfere with your natural testosterone production. It's just going to make you feel better and kind of boost things.
I absolutely will.
You see what I'm saying?
I absolutely will. But
one last
4
question.
weeks of the same thing.
Yeah, about 6 week PCT. And then you can do another 4 weeks of the N2 Generate.
Beautiful.
So we're gonna send you those. One last question before we let you go. New England Patriots, are they gonna win the Super Bowl again? Because you're in Boston.
Oh, do you have to ask? I mean, come on. I know you guys don't want to hear this, but what are you going to do? I mean, I'm sorry.
Well,
what are we going to do? I mean, it's the Patriots.
Tom Brady needs to retire already. So, all right, buddy.
Whatever.
If you have any more questions, buddy, we don't want to cut you off. You have any more questions? Go ahead.
No. You guys have helped me so much. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate everything.
All right, buddy. We appreciate
problem,
you
glad to help.
calling in. We appreciate you guys calling in. Guys, if you guys want to call in too, contact me, Steve SMI, on the forums. We'd love to have you on. For Steve Smee, Rick, and our guest, Seth from Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston, baby.
This is another episode of Evolutionary Radio. Thanks for listening.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good day.
what's up, guys? Evolutionary Radio or podcast coming your way. We're up to 282, guys. Today we're going to talk about Turinabol. And then the next episode will be 284. We're going to talk about testosterone again. It'll be the part 2 episode. We did part 1 previously. And then the one right before this was 280. That was Decadurable. And so if you have not listened to those, I recommend going back and listening to those. Great information in those podcasts. So this one, guys, is Turinabol. You probably know this as T-Bol, T-B-O-L. That's the slang term for it. And T-Bol is a really cool oral steroid. It's a derivative of Dianabol, D-Bol. But the difference is it doesn't aromatize into estrogen. And there's also a lot of different things about it that are really, really cool. And we're going to talk about it on this podcast. One of the nice things about it is it's very cost efficient. And it's a really, really cool steroid. One of my personal favorite orals. So let's talk about this. Rick, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? So, yeah, we're doing T-Bol today. How do you pronounce it, Steve? I like to call it Turinabol. What do you call it?
Turinabol.
I call it Turinabol. We'll figure it out. So, yeah, it's a great steroid, great information behind it, good history. Let's get started into history. Turinabol was developed by Jena Pharma. This is a pharmaceutical company out of Eastern Germany, right after Second World War. Jena Pharma patented the hormone in 1961, and it became available for clinical use in 1965. Like Steve said, the product is just basically they took the idea of Dianabol, which was already widely in use, and they modified the structure so that the steroid won't interact with aromatase enzyme, won't turn into estrogen, and it also won't turn into DHT. It won't interact with the reductase enzyme either. So you cover both ways. It won't become an estrogen, and it won't become a stronger, more androgenic steroid either. And that was the modification that took place. And they basically, this drug was given almost force-fed, you can say, to a lot of German athletes. Over 10,000 of them are estimated to have used the drug from about 1968 all the way through about 1989. And then after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the doping program was exposed. I think it was called a state plan topic, some number. And it was just a secret doping program going on in East Germany using mainly Turinabol. Some of it was given to athletes unbeknownst to them of what they were actually taking. They were just told they were taking some vitamins and told they had to take it. And it was Turinabol. Interesting side note there about Jena Pharma and Turinabol. It was the first original product they developed. They actually came up with this hormone on their own. They came right out of their lab. And years and years later, Jena Pharma had to pay a big settlement to a lot of the athletes that sued the company for their involvement in their being doped by the powers that be there in East Germany. So it's a really interesting little side note there that Jena Pharma had to later come back and, make good with athletes that were given their product without their knowledge and real consent, because nobody was really informed of the possible side effects. It was just about win medals, let's dominate, win medals. And there wasn't a lot of conscience behind it and working with these athletes' health. So yeah, that's about really the main history of Turinabol. It was produced by a legitimate pharmaceutical company, believe all the way until 1994. And right around then, it's supposed to have been discontinued as far as I can tell. And it made a real comeback. Turinabol made a real comeback years later. After Operation Gear Grinder, when all of the Mexican veterinarian labs started to go out of business, is when we really had the new era of underground labs come about. And the underground labs loved Turinabol. It was one of the very first anabolics that they introduced to the public, one of the very first unique orals that were introduced that weren't available through human grade or veterinarian channels. And so, yeah, it's a hit for the history of it, guys.
Yeah, and what's cool about it, part of the reason for that, too, is there are no medical reasons for it. It wasn't developed for medical reasons. And that's kind of cool. It was simply developed to dope. I mean, it was completely, it's one of the rare, unusual steroids that were just plain developed to lift more weight, get more mass, prevent muscle wasting in athletes. So that's kind of the cool thing. Now, what we mentioned a couple times, it doesn't aromatize into estrogen. What does that mean? And what this means is you don't have to worry about estrogen-based side effects when you take it by itself, or if you take it with another compound that doesn't aromatize into estrogen. That means you don't have to worry about gynecomastia. You don't have to worry about water retention. You don't have to worry about insomnia as much. You don't have to worry about high blood pressure as much. All those side effects that come with retaining water. That's the cool thing about it. So you don't need to run an aromatase inhibitor like Aromacin or Aromadex with T-Bol, as long as you're not stacking it with a lot of steroids that aromatize. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits, guys. One of the cool things about T-Bol, and it's one of the reasons a lot of strength athletes who compete love T-Bol, is that you get strength boost without a lot of weight gain. So if you need to make weight, if you're a wrestler who needs to make weight, if you're a power lifter who needs to make weight, et cetera, you know, even some of these sports like boxing or MMA, sometimes those guys will use a little bit of it too to get some strength. You're going to get tighter muscles without a puffy look. It does boost strength a lot more than people think. A lot of people think, oh, it's a weak steroid. It's not very androgenic or androgenic at all. It was designed for the East German females, Olympians, yada, 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 so it can't build strength. No. I actually hit my personal records running T-Bol as part of my stack. It is a really, really good one. Another good thing it does is it binds to SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, and that allows you to use it in a stack. Very, very beneficial to do that. It makes the other steroids in your stack work that much better because it's going to increase your free testosterone ratio, and it's got low side effects because it's mild. So you don't have to worry about not getting sleep when you take it and not being able to get the results from it. What do you think, Rick? What are some benefits?
I like Turinabol as opposed to Dianabol as a kickstart when I'm trying to stay dry. Like I discussed in previous podcasts, a lot of guys will run Dianabol and use an AI with it to avoid estrogen side effects. You should just use Turinabol instead. I said it then, I'll say it now. Just use T-Bol. That is your replacement for Dianabol when you are concerned about estrogen side effects. And Turinabol works great. The effects are comparable. I think the long-term results are also very close. And you see, guys, these hormones, when they enter your body, some of them can be aromatized. They can be turned into estrogen-like hormones by the aromatase enzymes. And when you get something like Turinabol, the scientists modified the structure so that it's no longer compatible with the aromatase enzyme. The aromatase enzyme can't attach to it and change it in any significant way. It can't do it. So it stays as a male hormone, never attaching or interacting female receptors, which is the case with Dianabol. It's definitely easy to get. It's available. It's also pretty cheap, a very cheap steroid to buy. It's not expensive. And, a lot of times they'll change it up. They'll supplement and give you low doses of Turinabol instead of Anavar or Winstrol sometimes, because those tend to be more expensive. It's a good steroid to use. Definitely a great kickstart. It's cheap, and you're also not into the additional cost of going into AIs and such. I personally, having Turinabol on hand and being a male, I probably wouldn't really use Anavar or Winstrol because they're more expensive to buy and they're weaker in the body than T-Bol at the same dosages, I feel like. So I wouldn't really see, unless I'm going into contest and I'm looking to get, Winstrol dry, it's probably best. Turinabol could be the best oral just to use in general for the most part. Unless you're looking for bulk in oral, then you want to look into Dianabol, Anadrol. But just a good dry gains oral or cut-in oral, Turinabol is it, man. I wouldn't step outside of that.
So what are the dosages? what guys like to use, somewhere between 10 to 20 milligrams up to 40, 50, even 60 milligrams would be a good dosage for a male. In my experience, I've always got really good results somewhere between 20 and 40 milligrams, especially when I'm using it in a stack. Now, females don't exceed 10 milligrams. Really, 5 milligrams should be plenty for you. Just like all anabolic steroids, you don't want to abuse if you're a female. You don't want to abuse if you're a male either. But females can possibly get viralization effects by overdosing Turinabol. Remember, it is still derived from male hormones, so don't mess around with it too much if you're a female. Have a lot of respect for it, guys. The thing about Turinabol, which is really, really cool, is the half-life. It's got a really, really long half-life. I've seen numbers, 16-hour half-life. So what that means is you can dose it once a day, no problem. And also it will still be in your system once you stop using it for another week, week and a half because of such a long half-life. So have a lot of respect for it. We're going to get into the side effects shortly. But first, Rick, how did you use T-Bol, and how do you recommend to use T-Bol as part of a stack?
I like T-Bol a lot with EQ, which I've said is one of my favorite steroids. It also works well with testosterone. It would definitely work well with DECA, although I haven't tried it with DECA. It's just a good steroid. It's a good Kickstarter. When I first started using steroids, T-Bol was just impossible to come by. You've heard about it, but you didn't think you could get it. And then in the late, I would say 2007, 2008, Turinabol was everywhere. And going into 2012, 2013, it just became real popular, and it's available everywhere. Every source had it. And I just like it. It's dry gains. I felt it gave me a great strength. A lot of the things that I enjoyed from using Trenbolone, even you could say, but just not as dramatic. Obviously, it's not as strong. It's not as strong, and you can't take it for as long as you would take Trenbolone. But yeah, it is like a little baby oral Trenbolone that doesn't aromatize, doesn't have all those side effects, gives you that strength. And that's why I compare it to Trenbolone more than Dianabol, because you get that dry strength. And that I really liked about it. Easy on the joints, even though your pushing is real easy on the joints. It's just a really good steroid. You don't have to worry too much about hair loss with it. Again, something that I like it over Tren. It doesn't have the bad side effects of Tren. It has some of the same benefits, maybe just not as strong. Would be a good way in my mind to kind of. It's the way I perceive Turinabol in my mind when I think about it, when I think about adding it to my stack. It's just that strong steroid. Obviously, you have to get off of it after 4 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks tops, because it will affect your liver. It is a very strong oral. I obviously took Entugard with it. So Tutka milk thistle with it definitely on every cycle. And yeah, don't exceed the 4 to 6 week mark. It's such a good steroid, won't give you like bad side effects. You won't feel shitty from it. That you may be tempted to run it a lot longer than you should, but you really shouldn't run it any longer than.
So for me, 3 ways that I ran it that I really think you guys will enjoy. The first way is what Rick was talking about, just kickstarting it. If you're running a 12 or 14 week cycle or 10 week cycle, kickstart it the first 4 to 6 weeks. 20, 30, maybe 40 milligrams a day at most. That's plenty. Any cycle. It could be test, EQ, primo, whatever. Any injectable cycle, just kickstart it, and you'll love it. You won't get a boost in side effects. The second way, for those of you who hate injections, T-Bol with D-Bol, 20 milligrams of each. I've done that for about 5 weeks. Great little stack, good yin and yang effect. You won't need an AI, probably, if you do that. So I really recommend that if you just want oral only. Make sure you're running your Entugard. You need your liver support, obviously. Third way, and this is the way I hit my personal records, 200 to 250 milligrams a week of Tren Ace, and then 30 milligrams a day of T-Bol for 6 weeks. I know that doesn't sound like a long time, guys, but trust me, you will hit personal records in strength on that stack. 30 milligrams of T-Bol, 200 to 250 milligrams of Trinase for just 6 weeks. That's it. 6 weeks and then stop. Make sure you're in top shape before you start that cycle. Make sure you're peaking your strength. If you're trying to blow through your plateau, I can practically guarantee you will blow your personal records in strength on that stack. And the nice thing about it is it won't be a lot of side effects because it's going to be a very mild compound. You're keeping the trend at a low dose, and the T-Bol won't spike your side effects too much. So it's a really, really good stack. Give that a shot next time for those of you who want to just become beasts in the gym. That would be something to do. Now let's talk about all the side effects, Rick. You mentioned the liver, so you definitely want to run your liver support. We talked about that, the TUDCA and the milk thistle. Those are ingredients found in N2Guard. But also got to keep in mind, guys, just like all anabolic steroids, Turinabol is going to shut you down. So what that means is that your pituitary glands are going to go dormant. They will not be producing hormones when you're on it. And just like any anabolic steroid, it'll start shutting you down the first couple weeks you're on it. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that and you run a good post-cycle therapy after. You always need post-cycle therapy after running any anabolic steroid. No matter how mild, you should run a post-cycle therapy because you want to protect your gains. So that would be something you definitely have to do. Another side effect, I'm going to let you, Rick, you talk about this, is the pumps. And that is something you have to be aware of if you're into sports like boxing, MMA, or running. So, Rick, talk about the pumps that you got with T-Bol.
Yeah, it's close to Dianabol for those pumps, man. It's another issue that I had with Dianabol that kept me away from it after a while. It's definitely those damn pumps. Like we've said in other podcasts, taurine helps, making sure you have proper balance of electrolytes. Coconut water helped me, massaging, just anything to relax those muscles. And the main idea is if you're doing any sort of like long distance running, MMA, kickboxing, just anything where those pumps are going to become uncomfortable, CrossFit, you really want to stay with very low doses of Turinabol to maybe not use it at all. Yeah, during the time that you're doing that style of training, because it will affect you. Also, the strength gains are awesome on it. You want to watch out, obviously, for injuries, because it's gonna make you really want to push. I mean, you're gonna know you're on something really strong after about the third week on it. You're gonna be hitting you're gonna be feeling a lot stronger, a lot more confident. But obviously, watch over your joints in that regard.
All right, guys. Also, detection time. If you are a tested athlete, you have to be careful because it can be detectable a couple months or a few months after you stop using it. The metabolites will be left. And if you do have to submit to a test, if you're a tested athlete, there's a good chance you will get busted. So, that goes back to the Russians using it during the Olympics. I think that contributed a lot to T-Bol. And I think a lot of athletes over the years have used T-Bol because word of mouth spreads, coaches run their mouths, and that helped Russia a lot after World War II win a lot of stuff in the Olympics. And I think that people started just yakking their mouth, and a lot of people started using it unaware that they could get busted for it. So you really have to be careful with it. And there's been a lot of professional athletes who have been busted for Turinabol over the years. A lot of athletes, especially in East Europe and Russia, who have gotten busted for it.
Yeah, look, the new era that we're going in testing, it's going to be pretty hard for anybody to get away with using steroids. They have to know really what they're doing, and just regular steroids are probably not the best way to go with performance enhancement anymore, because now they're just going down the tree of metabolites down to just minute conversions and finding, the second or third or fourth metabolite down the chain that Turinabol or Dianabol or any of these hormones will turn into months and months later. And they'll catch you. They will look for these metabolites that would not be in your system unless they started off as that Turinabol, as that Dianabol, as that steroid you were taking months ago. And that's a way that they catch athletes now that were using short-acting stuff, because a lot of these metabolites will store themselves in your fatty tissue. And as you cycle through your fatty tissue over the months, it'll come back out and start popping out, and you'll have small amounts of it in your system. So it's definitely a new era, a new dawn coming in performance enhancement testing. The testing is getting better and better, and the science for the testing is getting better and better. So definitely something to look out for. Those old charts from the old detection times from back in the day, those just don't work anymore. And, there's more advanced testing hasn't reached every corner of every sport. Some sports are still staying with the older testing, I think on purpose. But the UFC is a good example where they're now using USADA for their anti-doping policy enforcement, and they're catching people. So it's just something to keep in mind for all you guys competing out there.
Yeah, the former head, he was a former head of the anti-doping center from Russia, the World Anti-Doping Agency, the WADA. And his name was Grigory Rodchenkov. And if you guys can read about it, it's kind of fascinating. He came up with a way to kind of catch people using T-Bol way after they stopped using it. And they started using his system actually recently, since 2016. And a lot of athletes, specifically from Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, so those East European countries and those old USSR satellite states, they were a lot of weightlifters that were using it, both males and females. And then sprinters also love T-Bol. Long distance runners, you don't want to use T-Bol because of the pumps, but the sprinters love it. The weightlifters love it because, like I said at the start, it doesn't fuck with your weight. So you can hop on it at a low dose. You weigh, say, 150 pounds. You're trying to make that weight class, 150-pound weight class or 155-pound weight class. You will stay. You will stay at that weight. You won't balloon 10, 15 pounds like you would taking T-Bol. So it is really, really cool. It's a really cool steroid, and I think it's a little underappreciated, underrated out there, and it's dirt cheap. Any source, Underground Labs, any sources out there, guys, they will sell T-Bol. So if you haven't tried T-Bol yet, it may be something that you're interested in. Anything else to add, Rick, before we finish up?
Many of you guys probably have tried T-Bol, but you thought you were using Anavar or Winstrol, maybe. They'll use smaller doses and switch them out because you tend to be able to get produce T-Bol cheaper than you can Anavar or Winstrol nowadays. Have you seen that in prices out there, Steve? Am I still correct, or is my info is outdated on it? But I think a lot of guys have probably used Turinabol unbeknownst to that was what they were using. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's cheap. It's not as cheap as D-Bol, but it's pretty fucking cheap. So you can definitely get it.
Cheaper than Anavar or Winstrol, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, yeah.
You could see how scummy stores would send somebody, 5 mg tabs of Turinabol and tell them, these are Anavar.
Yeah, they believe it or not, they still do that. But sometimes the stores won't even know. So they're just getting it from their own place, and then they're reselling it. So, yeah, you got to trust your source at the end of the day, guys. You got to trust your source on this stuff.
Look, any good source that keeps a good chemist around, I think I'll be able to know if it's the right shit just by looking at it. These powders have a certain look, a certain smell, a certain taste. So when they substitute, to me, I think the sources has to know because the materials look different. There's some of them that look a lot alike, but man, they're somewhat different. So, sources should know. I think a lot of them just substituted being real scummy. And probably a lot of women out there have used Turinabol thinking they were using Anavar as well. So yeah, it's real cheap to get it. It's one of the ones it's one of the steroids that I'm pretty confident I can get cheap. And it's just a great one to use with testosterone, with DECA, with pretty much anything. It's a good steroid. I can't say enough about it.
All right, guys. Look, you guys got a lot of information in this podcast. If you have any further questions, hit me up, Steve SMI, on the Evolutionary.org forums. Next podcast, like we said at the start, is going to be part 2 of testosterone. We're going to hit that and answer up all your remaining questions. All right, guys, have a good evening. Have a good evening, Rick. Talk to you guys.
Hey guys, before we go, small confession. We had a little bit of an internet issue. So about 15 good minutes of the testosterone podcast was inaudible. You couldn't understand any of it. So we ended up clipping that out, and we ended up with a very short podcast missing a lot of information on testosterone. So this is why we decided to throw part 2 in there right away, so that our part 2 podcast will really help us get that information that we were forced to clip out because of the sound issues. We'll be able to put it back in there now.
Yeah, guys, that will be 284, podcast 284. So this is podcast 282, Turinabol, guys. Check it out. Give it a shot. Hit me up. Let me know how you like it. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right. Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.